Hey guys, this is Lieutenant Dan again, making another video on part 2 of my custom Axis and Allies table. Last time in part 1 I showed you what I went through to build the table as it is in the picture here with the tabletop, just the board, and then creating the legs and their supporting structures. This time I'm going to show you what I did to create all of the supporting structures underneath the table and how I connected the table top or bottom, to the actual understructure that I built in part 1. And then I finished that off with adding a border all the way around the tabletop, so that I could start, at a minimum, start playing the game. All right, so the first thing I did was I took 3 boards, as you see, going in between the skirt there, which would be ultimately at the bottom of the table. And I just cut them to the right length. And then you see 2 screws on each end of the board, attaching it to the skirt. So that's pretty simple. All right, next what I did was I took the bottom structure, the legs and the skirt, and I placed it upside down onto the tabletop, which is actually the bottom that you see here. So everything would be upside down. And you can kind of see the outline in pencil where I sketched out where the skirt would be, where the legs, the 4 legs, the top of the legs, right, where it would meet the bottom of the table. So I did this so that I could then figure out where the support structure for the skirt was, and then where I was going to put supporting structure for the entire length of the table. And what I was going to do then is mark those lines on the table, and then cut my boards accordingly to the proper width. Now here's where I've cut out the 1x2s or 1x3s, I forget what they are, but to be the proper width from front to back of the table. And then if you look close enough, I've actually used the lines on the bottom of the tabletop to create these notches in the cross members so that they will fit precisely on the skirt of the bottom structure. This will allow me to attach both pieces together. So now you can see that I've projected those lines onto the skirt, and then I'm going to create notches in the skirt so that then I can interconnect the pieces together. Okay, at this point I took my jigsaw out and cut those notches out to then allow me to attach everything together. All right, then I took the bottom structure and I placed it upright, and I took those 4 boards that I cut to the proper width from front to back, and then I assembled them together, as you can see here, so that the slots join together, if you will. So that's how I'm going to attach, the top to the bottom structure. So ultimately what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those 4 boards and I'm going to screw them into the bottom of the table, and then that will be its own assembly, and then I will attach it to the bottom structure. All right, so now what I did is I took those 4 boards that I attached to the bottom structure. I made sure that they fit in there nicely. I had to do a little bit of sanding here and there. And then I took them and placed them onto the tabletop that you see. The bottom is pointing upward at this moment. And I placed them where I had previously drawn those lines. Once I had them in the proper position, then from the other side, basically from the floor up, I drilled a bunch of holes to attach these boards to the table top. Okay, and then ultimately what I'm going to do is this will be its own assembly, and then I'm going to take this, which was pretty hard to do because it's pretty heavy because it's so big, and then I'm just going to rotate it and then drop it onto the bottom structure that I've been showing you up to this point. And there it is. After much creative thinking on how to get this board by myself lifted on top of this bottom structure, I finally got it there. But I basically took the slots that I had created on those 4 boards that I've been showing you up to this point, and I just interconnected them into the bottom structure skirt where I had those slots created. And then I just attached those 2 assemblies with a couple screws on each side. So ultimately, if I need to move, I can just detach a couple screws and then pull the top off of the bottom structure and take a couple bolts out of the bottom structure. And then I'll have, 4 or 5 pieces. All right, at this point, I wanted to sand up the top, get it all nice and smooth. So I use that pink plastic wood stuff to fill in any of the gaps. You can see the holes, how many holes there are that I used to attach those support boards underneath it. I didn't really care about filling those up because ultimately I'm going to put a piece of sheet metal where the map would fit on there. So after I got everything dried up, then I sanded everything down, made it very nice and smooth to the touch, and then I was ready to get to the next step in the process to start framing out the tabletop. All right, so I went ahead and mitered this one board that you see here to the correct size from front to back. And to help me get everything lined up and flush to the outer edge, I temporarily screwed in this board on the end so that I could just lay that one end of the frame on there. And then once I got it into place, then from the bottom, I screwed it from the bottom to attach it to the tabletop. Came out really nice. Corners matched up really well. And then I was ready to go on to the next side. All right, for the other end, basically did the same thing. Just tacked up a temporary board, mitered up my frame for the left end, and then I placed it in flush to that temporary board, and then I clamped it down to secure it. And then from the bottom, I screwed in about, 4 screws or so, so that I would attach it to the tabletop. All right, then it was pretty easy. Just rinse and repeat. Putting those temporary boards on the long sides and clamping it down, screwing it from the bottom, from the bottom up, and repeating that on the other side. And everything really came out really nice. All the corners are really tight, so I was pretty happy with that. All right, then I ordered a piece of sheet metal. It's a 22 gauge cold rolled steel, and I threw it down on top of the table. It fit perfectly, and then I threw down the map soon thereof, and I set up the game. ultimately I'm going to magnetize all of my pieces so that things don't move around if the table gets moved or cats decide to jump up on top of the table. All right, well, that pretty much concludes this video. I will be making more videos in the future on the progress of this table. My next step is to start framing up the top, well, with all the compartments and things like that, which I'm in process right now. So until then, we'll talk to you later.